science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction. Fiction. Fiction.
Serendipitous salutations to all you cognonauts out there, and welcome to another episode of Exofathom. I am Nick, and I am joined by my two lovely co-hosts, as always. Mike, what's going on?
Were you about to call me your cohort?
Cohort and co-host at the same time. Yeah.
Don't call attention to it. Damn.
It's okay. I mean, it's a mandatory at this point.
I'm not even like shaved or anything. I don't look good as a whore right now. But,
a hort.
Yeah, hort. Sorry.
Do you not remember the discussion about expletives in the first 5 to 10 minutes?
I didn't know that was an expletive. I thought that was just slang for someone who gets paid for doing things.
Well, I think it's one of those words that would make the algorithms cringe a little bit.
You gotta make the censors mad sometimes. If I learned anything from Whose Line Is It Anyways bloopers and outtakes, all the best ones were the ones where they cussed.
That's true.
Whose line is it? Was that Drew Carey in them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. Originally a British show, though. And then they ported it over to the States.
Yep. And of course, we have Ayla here. How are you, Ayla?
Oh, I'm feeling lovely as always. How are you?
Good. Happy Monday to everybody out there. We appreciate you listening in tonight or anytime you're listening to this. Thank you very much. Please consider giving us a subscription and a thumbs up on our YouTube page at Exofathom. It would really help us out. We are on Monday nights at 8 o'clock every Monday. And tonight we're going to be talking about luck, kind of. And I say kind of only because sometimes when I choose a topic, I realize that the topic that I chose is so vast and dense that it's impossible really to cover such a broad thing. And luck happens to be one of those, especially since every culture, every country, every person in this, world and throughout history has had some sort of encounter with luck and interpretation of luck, mythology about luck. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to cover everything, and I found myself diving into one aspect of it, which we will get into in the subsequent minutes of this episode. But I think the first question I want to ask you guys, so we can open it up, get a little bit loose, get the juices flowing. What is luck?
Wealth.
1, 2, 3, not it.
Yeah, not it.
No, luck is something that I have mixed feelings about in terms of defining it. I would say luck is the thing, it's the word we use to describe a series of events that make us happy or give us pleasure or satisfaction. It's the appearance of having a run of good events.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Pretty good interpretation. Mike, what do you think?
I think it's so there's like my mind splits into like two different like sides. So I guess the first half is there used to be this hockey game I played as a kid. It was like Fox Sports NHL Championship 2000 or 2001, something like that. But one of the lines the announcer said was or would say is you have to be lucky to be good and good to be lucky. And I kind of like that as kind of like wrapping that up as like a luck. Like good luck seems to happen to people who are kind of good at stuff. They just seem to get like everything breaks in their favor. Like fortune plays out really well for them. But you also have the opposite side of luck, which is bad luck. And you can be really lucky at being unlucky, which makes luck something interesting. Because it's like this probabilistically speaking, it's like the least probabilistic event to happen is going to happen to you, whether that be good or bad, or maybe not the least, but just still lower on the probability. And it's one of those things that will make you feel like a punchline in a cosmic joke, or will make you feel like you're on top of the cosmos. Like it's one of those, and you can't really control it no matter how hard you try. You just kind of have to like put yourself into a situation where you're not really sure what's going to happen, and then hopefully the best thing imaginable happens. But if you're really unlucky, then the worst thing's going to happen.
Right. Well, you put that all together very nicely. I think I don't even need to do this episode anymore. Good night, guys. We're done. No, but I'm glad that you mentioned a lot of that stuff, because we will be getting into a lot of the things that you guys both mentioned. Because what I found out, reading and kind of, so first of all, I was going to try to dive into the morality of luck, and maybe we can just touch bases on this right now, because I was reading a Stanford paper about the morality of luck. And apparently this is like a big contentious thing, because there's a lot of papers on luck and morality. But I think, you know what, let's save that, because there's a section in this episode dedicated to optimism. And I think we could probably touch bases with morality and optimism as well. So cool. Well, your guys' interpretations were very good, and I would agree with all of them. And I think what's interesting about that is that according to Wikipedia, there are interpretations for what luck is as a concept, and there are, I believe, 4, and I can break them down for you real quick. The 4 interpretations of what luck is 1 is lack of control, 2 is fallacy, 3 is essence, and then 4 is self-fulfilling prophecy. So just off the bat, that's kind of why I said that you guys sort of summed it up pretty well, because I think all of your answers fall into one of those 4 categories. And I think we'll just jump into it right now, starting with lack of control. I'll give a little explainer for it, and then you guys can give me your thoughts about what you think about it. But lack of control. So it says that luck refers to that which happens to a person beyond the person's control. This view incorporates phenomenon that are chance happenings, a person's place of birth, for example, but where there is no uncertainty involved, or where the uncertainty is irrelevant. Within this framework, one can differentiate between 3 types of luck. And it says constitutional luck, that is luck with factors that cannot be changed. Then you have circumstantial luck, which is the factors that are haphazardly brought on. And then you have ignorant luck, which is luck with factors one does not know about. And I think you guys sort of touch base, especially Mike kind of talked about a little bit about was it circumstantial luck, which is that sort of thing that you're talking about. By putting yourself out there, you could have the biggest boon or the biggest catastrophe. And that luck is more defined by its uncertainty than its sureness, which I find is really interesting, because once we get a little bit deeper into the mythology of it, we'll find out a little bit more about how ancient people treated the deity of luck, and uncertainty was definitely baked into that cake. But do you guys have anything that you wanted to touch on for lack of control? No.
I think it might be one of my favorite places to be in, as far as like just in that like lack of control. So like I'm trying to think about it from like a sports point of view, and playing like a game where you really don't have any control at all. Like as far as like team sports go, one-on-one is of course different, but like those moments, they kind of I guess they kind of make you feel more alive than anything. And maybe that's another part of feeding off of luck.
Yes,
because I do think it's like a discrete thing. I don't think like if you're lucky, you can play the luck game forever.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you think about like the concept of out of controlness. The first thing that came to my mind as far as games would be considered to be like roulette. You can choose where you think the ball is going to land, but you have no control over that ball. And you just kind of have to hope that you're lucky enough that it lands on your number.
Unless you're in Casablanca, And
Oh,
you're in Rick's bar. There's a little button on that roulette table that
right,
says
right.
stop on a certain number.
Yes, you could rig it, or you could subsequently also just spread all your chips over all the numbers, and then you're guaranteed to hit.
That's
Um,
like Titanic. When the one character is talking to Jack Dawson after like buying his way onto like another boat or something, and Jack's like, maybe I'll get lucky, and then the jerk guy looks to him and goes, "A real man makes his own luck." I was like, what a dick, dude! Like he's already gonna die. You have to rub it in.
That also reminds me of this whole idea of building luck too, like that Dark Knight, where you have Aaron Eckhart's character,
right.
where he has this coin and he's like, I never like I make my own luck or something like that, and it's a double, it's a two-headed coin.
Right.
I can't think of Batman without thinking of that line from Bane where he was like, "I was born in the dark, molded by it."
Wrong. Batman.
Different Batman. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I know. You're talking about the second one with the Two-Face and Joker, right?
Yeah.
What was that called? Batman Beyond? No.
You said
No,
Dark
that's
Knight.
a really good cartoon.
That was Terry McGinnis.
Yeah, the Dark Knight.
Dark Knight. Got it.
Well, and it's great that you bring up the coin, right? Because the coin is another probability machine that we use to sort of be what did you call it? Like an instrument of luck. Like we even do it in sports games. The football is the coin toss. And, like if you're lucky enough that you call the thing, you get the advantage at the first play of the game.
It's weird that it brings in an element of fairness to an event, or that's what it's supposed to be. Like the luck is supposed to be fair in a way,
right?
Yeah, like what I want to do is I want to do a study of every single football game in the history of football, and I want to code it by each team and how many times each team won or lost the coin toss, and see if it really is equitable.
That already. I guarantee you they probably have they probably have some sort of site where they already tallied all that stuff for sure.
Well, I want to find that site because I'm curious. But you're right. To have something so important, something viewed by millions of people, coming down to just a simple coin toss. Because and you're right that somehow makes it fair. That we're both not in control of this. Thus, it is fair.
And I wonder how many teams won the coin toss but then lost the game. Right. With the probability distribution beyond that.
We're getting into some great stuff, and you're already starting to touch base on the things that I was going to bring up too. So I'm glad that we're running in the same direction with all of this. But let's get into fallacy, which is the second sort of interpretation of luck in our 4. And fallacy is more of the cynical view. And this is the rationalist view, which holds that luck is probability taken personally. And that the rationalist approach to luck includes the application of the rules of probability and an avoidance of unscientific beliefs. So the rationalists think that and believe that they think that the belief in luck is a result of poor reasoning or wishful thinking. And to a rationalist, a believer in luck who asserts that something has influenced his or her luck commits post hoc ergo prompter hoc.
That's a new tattoo.
which is the Latin version of logical fallacy. That because two events are connected sequentially, that they are connected causally as well in general. So that if A happens, luck attracting event or action, then B happens. More contemporary, some authors have written that on the subject, belief that the definition of good destiny is one who enjoys good health, has the physical and mental capabilities of achieving his goals in life, and has good appearance, and has happiness in the mind, and is not prone to accidents. In a rationalist perspective, probability is only affected by the confirmed causal connections. So we talk about, we just mentioned sort of the gambler's fallacy too, which is I haven't. Oh, there's also the inverse gambler's fallacy. So I think the gambler's fallacy, right, is like, oh, I won this thing this time. That means I'm going to win the next one. Am I right about that?
Well, it says
You guys know?
luck attracting event or action, and then B happens. So I think it's that we're like, oh, I had Mike blow on my dice, and then I won. So he's gonna have to do it
He's going to
again.
have to
if I
do it.
win
Right,
again.
right. And then we get into our superstition episode, right?
Such a good episode.
The OCD of luck and all of that.
Well,
but there's, yeah.
Just to kind of connect the two. The first one, lack of control, like that's just a given. You know, like we have some sort of control, but a lot of like chaos is in the world, and you know, people argue that suffering is baked into the cake of human existence. I feel like that's a Nick quote. And so with the fallacy one, I just think it's interesting because here we are kind of like at the whim of fate, goes one way or the other. And we're like, yeah, like taking it personally, like we're trying to ascribe meaning to it, which I think is kind of interesting to kind of pause on.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, you know, the rationalist approach is definitely logically sound, but it's colder. So I think that's yeah, I mean, which is great for some people, but I just think that there's certain things where humans don't want to accept the cold rationality of you know, particular concepts, especially with something with luck, which is also so tied intrinsically, and we'll get into this later, with the belief in God. So
I'll tell you though, as somebody who did everything right and then some, which I'm saying, like I was ahead on work. I did like some affirmations that morning. I took my dog on a walk and did some mindfulness meditation. I burned sage. I had like a really good day. And then I also had a dream that was really amazing. Like all these supposed luck attracting events. And then I shattered my knee, and it was like the worst experience of my life. So I think that like this is kind of a triggering episode for me. I'm a little bit salty.
But that's fine. You can be.
But you know, I do like this rationalist approach only because it's like to sit there and stew on like what you could have done differently to make an event change, you know, like that'll drive a person insane. And so I guess it's cold, but I also do think that there's some sort of grounding that comes with just confronting things as they are and saying it's okay if that's how it is.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any. Well, you're ascribing morality to this too. So
no, I'm talking about the cold bit where it's like it just is what it is. It's just an event.
Right. No, that's what I mean though, is like before you were sort of ascribing morality to an unlucky situation. Like I did all of these rituals to bring.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, and that was the key point for me, at least, was to. Oh,
no, sorry about that. My internet just went jumbly. What were you saying?
Oh, you guys just went into like a vortex and came back. Did you see that? Oh, that was cool. Well, I was just saying that like it reminds me a little bit of the serendipity episode. You know, there's just like life is just a series of events, and here we are trying to, you know, put them together and assign some sort of logic where maybe there isn't any. And it might feel cold, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, calling a spade a spade.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong with the sort of colder logical approach to these types of things. I'm not saying that that's that you need to believe in some sort of woo-woo fairy or anything like that. I just think
you should.
You should
always believe in the woo-woo fairy.
In the woo-woo fairy, yeah. I just think that it is. I think in the interpretation that I just read, it seemed very callous, which is fine because you can dismiss something like the belief in luck as fairy tale. So I understand why a lot of people would sort of reject that notion and just be like, no, sorry, you know, correlation doesn't mean causation.
Now, do you think these rationalists were lucky?
Yeah, I know, right? That's a good question.
I mean, if you could dismiss luck, like Ayla was saying, it could drive somebody crazy, right? Mm-hmm. If you could dismiss the whole notion altogether as a logical fallacy and not ever have to think about, you know, not being lucky, or even worse, if you're extremely lucky and being unlucky, you're a misfortunate one, and you know it's like it's like a great soothing to the soul to not have to worry about your misfortune and just rationally just put it away somewhere, you know.
That is true. Yeah, absolutely. It would be existentially terrifying to have to consider that the universe is conspiring to kill you. You know,
True. And they're actually, you're reminding me of this book that I have had to read for like 2 decades now, and it's the smallest book, but it's called Candide, and it's the main
Voltaire.
character. Yeah, he has a whole series of bad luck, and it's just a book about him kind of navigating the world and like different encounters and stuff like that. So, maybe we do like a book club on it because it seems relevant, at least to this conversation for sure.
Oh, it certainly is. It was referenced a lot. Voltaire definitely did a lot of thoughts about luck. Again, I would have gone down a bazillion rabbit holes, and then this show would have been so scattered. So I had to really like crystallize it onto one thing, and that hopefully that branches out into other things. But yes, Voltaire and Candide were sort of seminal works in the sort of understanding of the philosophy of luck. For sure.
And it makes me think of Job, right? Isn't he like the most dedicated faith person? And then God gives him like
that had nothing to do with luck.
No, that was God and the devil having a pissing contest.
Oh, is that what that was? I thought it was just like all this bad stuff happened and it was God proving that like he still has faith or something.
No, the devil taunted God because, you know, God was showing off Job to the devil and being like, look how devoted he is to me. And the devil's like, yeah, it's because he has all that nice stuff. I bet if he didn't have that nice stuff, he wouldn't love you. And God was like,
oh, damn.
All right, I'll take that bet. And he just takes away everything from him.
What? That's the story?
Yeah.
That's how it went down.
But
And then,
his faith.
but Job keeps his faith, and then God rewards him. But after killing his entire family and destroying
Ruining
his
his life.
property and ruining his life. Yeah.
Right. But so then that's where that sense of like a comeuppance is. That's like like one of the origins of it, right? Because like anytime something bad happens to me, I'm always like, let me go buy a lottery ticket. You know, like that's the small like chit chat that you make. Because the idea is that like something bad happened, so now you're gonna have good luck after that. When like
or that something good happens, and then you say I should go buy a lottery ticket because that good thing happened. Oh, I might be lucky.
Yeah, that too.
It's what I found was really interesting is that so luck kind of evolved from being in favor of from the gods, or being in the gods' favor. That's kind of what the whole crux of what luck is.
Yeah.
In the ancient world, that's the way they interpreted it.
Do you guys remember when Tommy Hilfiger's horrible daughter and some other rich chick had like a TV show and it was just them hanging out, having conversations?
Wrong crowd.
Well, I said I wasn't going to go here, but you brought it up, Nick, and I was just thinking about her. She was sitting in like the Ritz-Carlton, and it was like middle of the day. They were doing nothing and talking about how lucky they were. And there's like a long pause, you know, because they like you see the show and all this good stuff's happening. So after the long pause, the one chick goes, we must have just been like amazing in our past lives. Like we must have been just such good people to deserve this. And I remember being so hateful towards them when I watched it. I was like, And, you know, in retrospect, it's like what you're saying, that's just a signal that if you have a good run of luck, you somehow feel like you're touched. You're in God's favor.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's really well said.
But there is there's the opposite side, which Christianity teaches, as we were just talking about Job, where God only gives you as much as you can handle. So if you're given the worst of hands, then you're the strongest of the lot. Right, and you are.
I'll show them these hands.
Lucky. You are lucky that you have such a strong soul and strong will to get through your misfortunes. This also runs true with some of the ancients, with the idea that the luckiest among us are the ones who are the most granted the fortune of misfortune. I keep going back to this fortune and misfortune because I don't like the idea of the word luck being automatically classified as good luck. I've had what would classically be called a good string of good luck, And then I've had a really good string of bad luck. And I think I've learned more from the bad luck than I ever have the good luck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm glad that you're bringing that duality out right now, because we will talk about that and how that manifests in the mythology, because there is you're making a case, and then there has been a mythological explanation for this for thousands of years. So which kind of brings us into the third interpretation of luck, which is essence. And we're kind of in that right now. We're talking about that, which is the concept that you're currying the favor of the gods, that you have the favor of the gods, and that luck is something that's bestowed upon humankind by the gods or sort of divine providence. So this is where it gets interesting. Luck versus divine providence. So at some point, the Abrahamic religions stopped using the concept of luck because it took God out of the equation. And so they inserted this concept of divine providence, because you no longer had this sort of pantheon of gods to pray to the fortune or fortuna in order to have good luck. You had to explain luck in a way that monotheism could explain. And that's where you get this concept of divine providence, which would be that God steps in and gives you favor to overcome the obstacle that you're in.
I'm sorry for giggling, but when you said Fortuna and praying, my dyslexic brain turned that to praying Fortuna.
Yeah, praying Fortuna. That's what dolphins do all day.
Yeah, I just need some tuna, please. Don't even need the mayonnaise. Maybe a cracker, fork. Just please give me that tuna.
But yeah, so, I mean, like,
so just real quick, sorry. So God is removed from luck. They bring in divine providence, and that is to the Abrahamic religions do that to reintroduce God into it.
Oh, sorry. What I meant was that luck was associated with polytheism in many cultures. So Fortuna being the goddess of luck in Roman culture and in Greek culture. So this concept of divine providence had to be kind of integrated into monotheism in order to account for luck, because how do you explain, people getting things over other people? Well, it's because God had a hand in it.
Okay.
Instead of the more polytheistic concept is that, you have one God or another, and they're sort of, you pray to this God for good luck, but you might want to fear this God because of certain things that we'll get into later. So
that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it makes sense that they had to inject that, especially if you're a controlling class from just like a social control point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're like some sort of church that takes tithing, that takes tithes in. Why do we have all this nice stuff, and why do you have all this nice stuff and we don't?
Right.
God likes us.
Right. Well, and it has to explain for God likes us.
Yeah. God really likes us.
But it also has to explain for disparity, right? So you have this concept, like you're trying to instill this new religion into people who are living, hand to mouth, maybe on dirt floors in thatched huts. And, you got to tell them that, if you believe hard enough, God might give you his providence and you'll be able to pull yourself out of this, instead of this concept of like, because I think that's the schism, right? A lot of atheists say this, like, well, if God existed, why do bad things happen to people? Like that's always their go-to argument. So this concept of divine providence, this favor that God gives some over others, kind of became an explanation for that.
Makes sense.
Messed up. It's like a popularity contest with the divine. That's messed up, man. Why even create people you don't like?
So if the universe works in balance, you have to have people with that are fortunate and people that are unfortunate.
So just picture him like making clay, or her, or whoever, like picking up clay and being like, I hate this one.
It's
Stupid
just
human.
Just depends on how much God had to drink that day or night,
Right.
whether you came out fortunate or not.
Mhm.
Oh my God, if it all came down to that.
Yeah. So that kind of explains the concept of essence, and we're really going to jump into that once I talk about Taiki and Fortuna. But I wanted to get into self-fulfilling prophecy because Ayla, you did touch a little bit on this as far as like perspective and luck, because I think that really is important. And so self-fulfilling prophecy is pretty self-explanatory, but some evidence supports that the idea that the belief in luck acts as a placebo, producing positive thinking and improving people's responses to events. And so in personality psychology, people reliably differ from each other depending on 4 key aspects. One is beliefs in luck, rejection of luck, being lucky, and being unlucky. And so the people who believe in good luck are more optimistic, more satisfied with their lives, and have better moods. People who believe that they are personally unlucky experience more anxiety and have and less likely to take advantage of unexpected opportunities. But this is a really important concept because we've always talked about how perspective and how looking at things shapes our reality. But I also think that it's a dangerous charge to level on somebody who isn't prepared for it. And so I think that this concept of like positive thinking, and we'll get into because this ties really closely with optimism, which is kind of what I explained earlier. This concept that believing in something good happening will sort of manifest that to happen. And I think that there are pitfalls with this concept because it doesn't factor in the chaos of the world and of life. And then it creates sort of a psychological schism, because if you're somebody who believes that good things are coming and then you don't get those things, it can create sort of like a dissonance. And so I thought that was really important to point out as far as self-fulfilling prophecy and optimism.
Yeah, no, definitely. Go, Mike.
No, go for it.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, well said, Nick. I like the different personality types as they relate to luck, which is really interesting, and how that would tie into being optimistic or not. It's kind of funny though, people who believe in good luck are more optimistic, more satisfied with their lives, and have better moods. Like to say one mood is better than another, I think might be a bit of an antiquated notion, because I think that there's definitely value in, like Mike was alluding to, those hardships that people go through. You end up digging deep, learning stuff about yourself, finding creative outlets, having meaningful conversations with people. So it's just interesting because this is resting on kind of this idea of like good and bad. I don't know. I'm just like thinking about layers of like definitions right now, because like definition of luck is murky. Definition of the 4 personalities based on this murky thing, and then opinions about those personalities and attitudes based on these murky things. Like it's this layered, weird, nebulous thing, which again is just our left logical brain grasping at straws, trying to make sense of this world. Because clearly I'm in the rejection of luck personality type.
That's
right
why
now,
you're so
but...
upset.
Just like I just like all the neurotic people are just believe in bad luck or believe that they're personally stricken by bad luck. Cognitive dissonance, that schism comes from comes from hope. Hope is like one of those big. It was one of my favorite drugs, or still probably is my favorite drug. Sit there and hope things will change all the time. Doesn't mean they're actually are, right? So you keep hoping for some good luck to come down the road, and it just doesn't show up at all.
Right. Yeah, and it can be degradational. I mean, like it can hurt the soul for sure, and it can make you sort of feel like the world is out to get you.
And then on the other side of it, though, like too much good luck. I mean, I know it sounds silly to say this, but too much good luck can like rock your brain, like in very obvious ways. And then also there's like some people who are too optimistic and a little bit too happy, where it's draining to be around them. Like a little too up, like not uppity, a little bit too bubbly, over the top, like borderline manic in their happiness,
Right.
and all of that. And like that is it isn't good either. So like that.
Yeah, that usually is just a facade, though, right? I don't know if anybody's that happy all the time.
I mean, if there's a really funny joke, you can be pretty happy, and that just sets your mood for the whole day. So there's that.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
but I like what you were saying, Mike, about just sitting there and thinking, well, my luck's going to change. My luck's going to change. My luck's going to change. You know, like I think what's interesting is there's that quote, God only helps those who helps themselves. And then there's also, you know, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, you just can't sit around and just hope that luck is going to change. Like events are constantly in motion, you know, like if you lose your job and you're like, well, I'll find another one, you know, and you don't make efforts to like, I don't know, downscale your financial commitments, you might run out of money faster than somebody who was like cautiously optimistic, I guess, you know? So it's interesting because if you start, I guess maybe it's if you start putting too much stock and guidance in the esoteric, then you might be blindsided by the harsh realities of life or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, luck is a belief system, right? And so what we're talking about with self-fulfilling prophecy is like you buy in to this sort of superstition matrix that tells you that like what we said with the fallacy, like if A happens, then B happens. And so like when you buy into that process of luck, you have to surrender to it. And so, yeah, I mean, it could definitely be dangerous to sort of believe in luck, because then you have to believe in bad luck. You can't just, like Mike said, you can't just believe in that there's good luck. You have to also understand that there's bad luck too. And so is it more advantageous then? Is it more advantageous to leave it all, you know,
behind?
Leave it all behind us and in the trash bin. Is this some sort of
trash bin?
Yeah, I mean, is this some sort of magical system that we don't need anymore because it requires too much orthodoxy?
Yeah.
I just like many other parts of the woo and like esoteric, I enjoy the flavor it adds to life, but it can be like I really want to stress the fact that I am not a big fan of good luck. Like I see it as a very going back to going to a food metaphor. I see it like a strong spice. Like you put too much on it, it ruins the whole dish. Like, do you want to like you could be crazy rich by being born into it, but then never add anything to society and never actually living a meanwhile life and living a life of any sort of substance. You may have a bunch of things and stuff, but I guarantee you get tired of that because that becomes your standard of sorts, and you never do anything of meaning, or you never find meaning at all. And that it's weird how good luck can become bad luck. I mean, look at famous people. Like, fame is more of a curse than it is a gift. And a lot of people would say that celebrities or anybody famous is lucky. But I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't think it's true at all. I think that's like the double-edged sword, or the other side of the sword.
Man, you're creeping so close, man. I can't wait till we get to this part. So I definitely agree with what you're saying.
Well, and to just
yeah,
piggyback on that too, before you move on, it
No,
makes
go
me
ahead.
think of lottery winners, right? People who win big jackpots, and then there's been studies that people who win jackpots, they lose it all, they get sick and die, they have like across the
You
board,
want to
like
know
really
my
horrific
favorite?
stuff
Do you want to know my
happens.
favorite part about lottery winners? They found
They
they get sued by
What?
everyone in their family and a bunch
Yeah.
of their friends for
Oh
the
my
most.
God, are you serious?
Yeah, for the tiniest reasons. Because now you have all this money, and all of a sudden your
That's
third
awful.
cousin from your second aunt's sister's brother's other cousin comes up and says, "Hey, remember that one time you served me that burnt hot dog? Well, it caused emotional damages, and now I'm going to sue you for a bunch of money."
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
God, it's awful.
It is true. Yeah.
It's where good luck becomes bad. Sorry, Nick. Keep going.
No,
I could keep talking.
But
I
it's
could keep
true.
talking about good luck being bad forever.
Well, and it's important that you bring it up too, because we're going to move on now to the deity and mythology portion of this this talk. And of course, throughout the world, there's many deities that are associated with luck. I had to focus on one because I just couldn't, keep like expounding out. Like I would, if I decided to do one more, then I would have had to do another one and another one and another one, because, like it's just so deep. So I decided to just focus on one, and that is Tiki / Fortuna. Tiki is the Greek name for the goddess of luck, and Fortuna is the Roman name for the goddess of luck. And we're going to look at this embodiment of luck and see maybe what we can glean. I have a couple of fables from Aesop as well, because he was a fan of writing about Tiki or Fortuna. I'm going to use those names interchangeably for our listeners. So just understand, if I say Tiki, I also mean Fortuna, because they're the same entity. But let's just jump into it. So Tiki is the Greek goddess, and was the presiding tutelary deity who governed the fortune and prosperity of a city and its destiny. In the classical Greek mythology, she is the daughter of Aphrodite and Zeus or Hermes, and at this time served to bring positive messages to people relating to external events outside of their control. During the Hellenistic period, the dramatic socio-political changes started with Alexander the Great, and Tiki was increasingly embodied the whims of fate, both positive and negative, eclipsing the role of the Olympian gods. The Greek historian Polybius. How would you guys? Polybius? Okay, that sounds better. Believed that when no cause can be discovered to such events as floods, droughts, frosts, or even in politics, then the cause of these events may be fairly attributed to Tiki. Other ancient Greek sources corroborate Polybius, such as Pindar, who claims that Tiki could hand victory to a lesser athlete. This Hellenistic Tiki is often featured on coins, such as those minted by Demetrius I Soter. And then further, Tiki comes to represent not only personal fate, but the fate of communities. And so that's why I wanted to point out the concept of the coin toss too, because I think that that's probably where we get that sort of tradition, because the goddess of fortune, I guess you could say, was imprinted on Greek coins. So I thought that was a fun little tidbit that I did not know.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Okay, so Tiki. So what I wanted to point out about this is that there's a lot of complex relationships that people had with their deities, and Tiki seemed to be, in at least my reading, one of the most hated. And 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 it's exactly because of the things that we're talking about, right? Especially what Mike said. It's this fickleness. She was known as an incredibly fickle goddess. It was somebody that could bring you up, like you said, to the vaults of heaven, or make you feel like the universe was trying to annihilate you. And so she kind of gained fame and notoriety throughout the ages as this sort of fickle being that you lamented and hated, but also prayed for her return. And I always thought that was a kind of interesting relationship, because you don't have similar things, maybe except for Demeter. You don't really have that same dynamic that you do with Tiki, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah,
It's this lamentation of her absence, and then like the praying that she comes back to you.
It reminds me of like a femme fatale type character, like the one that got away, for us romantic bleeding hearts.
right. Yeah. The woman that turns your world upside down and then leaves it, right?
Yeah, and then just walks away, and you're like, yeah, it's a cool archetype. It does become an archetype of very strong female characters.
Definitely. Yeah. And so to sort of represent this fickleness, they had
does this tie us down into like that notion of Lady Luck?
Yeah. And that's exactly it. Lady Luck is Fortuna, basically. Which again, like, I think even in the song Luck Be a Lady, it's like, please visit me. Like, Sinatra saying, please, stand by my side. Don't leave me, because luck be a lady tonight, which is that same spirit of like, please stick around. Don't decide to just up and leave me at the, in the middle of this. That would really suck. But I think that's a really good illustration of this thing this ephemeral thing that we're talking about, this favor of the gods, this like the thing that you can't grasp too tightly, or it just disappears on you. And so I think there's something really beautiful about that metaphor, because it illustrates something that's kind of, you can't put your finger on, but intuitively.
Yeah, and you even if you how do I want to say this? If you naively kind of walk into it, you don't know exactly what you're experiencing until it's gone. And I think that's what makes it beautiful too.
Right.
Is that when you're having that great run, if you're a gambler, it seems like if you're like a poker player, you can sit down at any table and just run the table for nights on end. You may get it in your head that you've become the greatest poker player of all time,
Right.
You ever seen the Cincinnati Kid?
No, I don't think so.
Steve McQueen movie. He's a stud player. It's a poker game, 5-card stud player. And it kind of plays along these notions of like being in the light and being in the limelight and feeling all this luck drenched on you. Where like you can't make a bad move. Everything just goes your way all the time.
Right.
And it explores that notion of like what happens when luck just leaves. What happens when that thing just goes away.
Right.
And it's a little bit of a tragedy, but it's still like a beautiful sort of tragedy.
Yeah. I think it's intoxicating too, right? It's this concept that like once you're in the luck, I guess you can say like in the luck. Once you're in the luck, you have no really thought about what's outside of that realm of influence anymore. It's like totally immersing, especially like, the concept of gambling. But even in like, say you're in a sport and you make you do a Hail Mary and out of nowhere somebody catches it and you score the touchdown to win the game or whatever. Or, you're shooting a basketball and the buzzer stops and, you sink the 3-pointer or whatever after it bounces off the backboard a couple times, but it's that like intoxication of feeling closer. I don't know if I would call it closer to God, but closer to something divine.
Yeah, you're definitely like, I've definitely felt in a way like that became very similar to flow states. That level of immersion, that level of near divinity or faux divinity or whatever you want to call it.
Divinity adjacent.
Yeah. But it's definitely up to that level. And like as you were talking about those sparks memories, I went back to my youth playing soccer as a goalie and like playing club soccer and shutting out a team of like I was like I was probably as tall as my desk, and my desk is not very tall. And somehow I was able to jump and punch the ball over the crossbar with my fist hitting the crossbar after it after the ball went over. And those things are such visceral memories of good luck that they stick with you forever.
Right.
And it's sort of crazy that good luck has that sort of effect on you. Taiki has that effect on you, and why you wouldn't want her to leave ever.
Right. Yeah. It's and how lonely you feel when she abandons you.
Oh yeah, when you're losing like 9-0 or something like that, and it's all your fault, or you're looking down at the ground.
Or like how demoralizing is it? Like when a team is getting squashed, it's like even before halftime, you're like, oh fuck this, dude, I'm done.
Or even like you missed saving the one big shot of the game. You would have won if you would have just stepped up. What's wrong with you?
Right. Exactly. Well, Ayla, did you want to add anything? Are you good?
I think I'm good. Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting myth, and it's cool to know, where some of this stuff, how far back it goes. I'm a little bit interested in the quote dramatic socio-political changes that started with Alexander the Great, which then necessitated the emergence of Taiki.
Well, the
taking
emergence
over the world.
Well, the emergence of she was around before, but it was the emergence of her integrating both positive and negative. So Taiki started off as just a good luck goddess, but then around the Roman or Alexander the Great, probably because of how much war and misery was going on, Taiki had to sort of embody both positive and negative fate.
Damn. Isn't that crazy that like I guess it's that that meaning thing, all these events happen and then you get the birth of this like, new conception of a god. Just sad and interesting.
Yeah. The disposition of a god changes, right? And but and this fickleness in which she became very famous for is illustrated by what is called the Rota Fortunae, which did you know that Pat Sajak was an occultist?
Who's that?
I didn't know that.
He was no con words about Pat Sajak.
He's a pagan occultist. He's worshiping Fortuna. No, I'm kidding. He's not. But Pat Sajak, the host of Wheel of Fortune. Rota Fortunae is Wheel of Fortune.
That's pretty creepy considering the show that he's on. Like, what the heck?
Right. Well, and it's basically a mini, cult that worships the goddess of fortune, which is kind of fun.
How do you know that show doesn't serve the same purpose?
It does kind of, right? I mean, like it all does in its mechanisms. Somebody is lucky enough to win, and it's all just spinning a wheel.
What would you do if you found out that if the Wheel of Fortune didn't happen, then everything goes like Cabin in the Woods and the old gods rise and we all
just keeping Cthulhu at bay.
Yes.
Oh man.
But then we go back into that randomness, that probability thing, right? That we were talking about with the coin flip or what else were we talking? You could talk about with dice too, rolling dice. You get into this wheel spinning thing and there is no skill to spinning that wheel. Like, yes, you can really goon it and try to make it, make as many revolutions as possible, but that doesn't guarantee that you're going to not land on bankrupt. So I think that there's something really cool about that ritual of leaving it up to chaos.
Yeah. And I think that's as we became more civilized, the less we left brings up to chaos.
Mhm.
And I think it feels that need for the chaotic. I think nowadays, without game shows, like I think the most common thing that every person does is procrastinate.
Mhm.
Like it's probably the best we do to reinstitute chaos into our lives.
Mhm.
Because you sometimes you play things on luck, like, oh, am I going to make it there on time? Who knows?
Right. Well, in medieval and ancient philosophy, the Wheel of Fortune, or Rota Fortunae, is a symbol of capricious nature of fate. The wheel belongs to the goddess Fortuna, or Tyche, who spins it at random, changing the positions of those on the wheel. Some suffer great misfortune, while others gain windfalls. And funny enough, the metaphor was already cliche in ancient times, and they complained, or Tacitus actually complained about it. He says, but it was greatly popularized in the Middle Ages by extended treatment in Consolidation of Philosophy by Boethius at about 520 AD. And it became common image in manuscripts of books and other media where Fortuna, often blindfolded, turns a large wheel of the sort using like a water mill. So they kind of depicted it as one of those, not a windmill, but a water mill, where kings and other powerful figures were attached. So you have this illustration of a wheel, and all of the present kings and past kings are attached to it, and it's just this circular thing that keeps on happening. And Fortuna is in charge of who gets to be on top of the wheel. She's also blind, so and changes the direction of the wheel at her whim. And this is what Boethius said about Fortuna. He said the goddess and her wheel were eventually absorbed into the Western medieval thought by Roman philosopher Boethius, who played a key role utilizing her both her wheel and something else. Sorry about that. So in the second chapter of his second book, he says, I know the manifold deceits of that monstrous lady Fortune, in particular her fawning friendships with those whom she intends to cheat, until the moment when she unexpectedly abandons them and leaves them reeling in agony beyond endurance. It just goes right back to what we were talking about a little bit before about the abandonment of fortune and luck. He has another quote here saying, having entrusted yourself to fortune's dominion, you must conform to your mistress's ways. What are you trying to halt? What are you trying to halt the motion of her whirling wheel? Dimmest of fools that you are, you must realize that if the wheel stops turning, it ceases to be the course of chance.
True. I also feel like though there's this weird something weird about humans wanting the nature of this goddess to change so that they get all the luck.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it just seems like you should expect luck to come and go after after you hit a certain maturity, you should start to understand that this thing is not going to stick around forever.
Right. Yeah. No, it is true. It is kind of funny, but I guess maybe there was more luck back then. Do you think there's more luck now or less luck now?
Oh.
If we could quantify the luck.
All of the luck. Probably more luck now.
Yeah, I guess with all the gambling and stuff, right?
I mean, at least the fact that someone hasn't passed out on a nuclear launch code or something. I mean,
that's true.
Pretty lucky.
Generally good, yeah.
That is generally good.
There's been some movies about that sort of thing,
Yeah.
I still don't understand how we were on floppy disks up until several years ago. And then they're like, oh, let's upgrade. And you're like,
I like how there's more computing power in our phones than there was that got people to the moon. And we complain about interstellar travel being difficult.
Yeah, and I think Elon Musk is shooting a rocket at the moon for no reason, just to explode it on the moon.
What I don't understand that and paying $50,000 to Or maybe paying 50 grand.
Maybe
or
they're
being
gonna
extorted
actually
for 50
maybe
grand
they're
for
gonna actually
stopping that
nuke
kid
maybe they're gonna actually nuke the moon like they planned on doing a long time
and
ago.
terraform it.
Yeah.
I just like that there's some kid tracking his private jet.
Oh my
And
god, I saw that.
yeah, Elon Musk goes, all right, it's your lucky day, kid. I'll pay you $5,000. He's like, make it 50.
Yeah, $5,000. You serious? Like,
Yeah, I know, right? For $5,000 from a multi-billionaire.
right? How cheap?
So
could have
yeah,
said 5 million. It still would have been reasonable.
that's true. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like you're gonna spend all that money in one lifetime.
So I was going to share with you guys 2 fables that Aesop wrote in regards to Tiki or Fortuna, and see what you guys think about this. And then we're going to talk about the other side of the coin. So in Aesop's fables, and this is from Fables 261, it says here, the Traveler and Tiki. That's the title of it. So a traveler wearied from a long journey lay down, overcome with fatigue, on the very brink of a deep well. Just as he was about to fall into the water, Lady Tiki, it is said, appeared to him and, waking him from his slumber, thus addressed him. Good sir, pray wake up, for if you fall into the well, they will blame me and I will be thrown out, and I shall get an ill name among the mortals. For I find that men are so sure to impute their calamities to me, however much of their own folly they have brought to themselves. So I just like that little story, because you got to think like this guy's about to fall asleep right next to a well, and he's about to slip right into the well. This goddess comes down. He's like, don't do that. Don't do that. Please just wake up, because they're going to be really pissed at me if you fall into this well.
I'm tired of these men's shit. They're a bunch of idiots.
They blame me for everything.
Yeah. You're falling asleep next to a well and you expect not to fall in.
Yeah. Use your brain.
Yeah.
That's
But,
funny.
I like the humans do this all the time though. Maybe it's like a coping mechanism or a defense mechanism to just avoid taking responsibility for bad luck or for bad things happening, you know?
Yeah.
No matter what happens, you still end up putting yourself in a position that could that leaves you compromised to the bad luck.
I think it's also more comforting to think that, you know, the bad luck had to do with some misstep in your ritual than complete happenstance and just chaos. Like, yeah. I think it might be easier for people to cope, to be like, oh, it was because I didn't wear my lucky underwear. That's why. Oh, yeah, you know, like,
yeah.
Do you have lucky underwear?
No, but a lot of people do, apparently.
What?
Yeah, bad things just happen. Yeah, I don't even own underwear. I'm a pragmatist.
Yeah.
What do you need them for, anyways?
It's like that.
Didn't you watch American Pie? That's a dangerous bet, man.
I like to think of the Seinfeld episode where Kramer does it, and I think it's Jerry goes, so the only thing that's separating me from you, or you from me, is
that thing?
Yeah. And yeah, like to blame it on any sort of piece of luck makes it a lot easier than chaos or one's own follies that got them to the point, right? Like you see this most in going back to video games and fighting games. When people lose, they'll blame it on a bunch of stuff. But even in
they do.
Even in Counter-Strike too, you blame it on a bunch of things. But what it comes down to is the simple fact is, like, if you weren't in that position, you wouldn't have got. If you knew,
right, if
you were aware of what you were actually doing, then you would have never been in that position to lose in the first place. You would have found the winning position.
Just get good.
Yeah, just get good.
Yeah, that's it.
Get good, bro. What are you doing? But no, I
Yeah.
like that story. That's a cool
It's
story.
it's funny just because I'm amused by how exacerbated she would be. Like just like trying to keep men from calamity because she doesn't want to be blamed by them. Like
Like, do you understand that my donations at my temple are down 6% and I need this
right.
to change pronto?
Yeah. They're starting to blame me for your bullshit, Ted. Come on.
Blind, and I have to spin this water wheel. All right.
Exactly.
You have bad luck.
All right.
Right. I have one more here from Aesop, and this is from Fables 535, I believe, and it goes as thus: as Zeus once ordered Tyche to show mankind two ways. One, this is okay. Sorry, one the way of freedom, and the other the way of slavery. Tyche made the way of freedom rough at the beginning, impassable and steep, with no water anywhere to drink, full of brambles, and beset with dangers on all sides at first. Eventually, however, it became a smooth plain, lined with paths and filled with groves of fruit trees and waterways. Thus, the distressing experience ended in repose for those who breathed the air of freedom. The way of slavery, however, started out as a smooth plain at the beginning, full of flowers, pleasant to look at, and quite luxurious. But in the end, it became impassable, steep, and insurmountable on all sides.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I don't know this for sure because I couldn't trace it all the way back. But we have this the saying, "Fortune favors the brave." I think that might be one of the earliest illustrations of that. And it's because nothing risked, nothing earned, right? Or nothing gained. This concept that you have to kind of throw yourself out there in order to even be in luck's fortune is pretty interesting to me.
You want to know something bizarre that struck me while you were telling me that? These fables, believe in a certain capacity, were meant for children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere. So now compare that to our like the sort of, not Disney, but Disney-esque cartoons that we grew up with, where the character goes to the fork in the road.
Mm-hmm.
And on one side, it's all scary and terrible.
Right. Yeah.
But on the other side, it's all like flowers and fields instead of nice forest. And they always choose the nice fields and forests to like not, or they choose like the sketchy way. They end up getting in trouble and like stuff happens, but should have chose that nice way.
Right.
But the Aesop fable is the inverse of that, as far as being a fortune, which is weird. What does that instill then? Does that instill us to take kind of this greedy, easy path of going like the safer way and not risking anything? Is that what we're taught now?
I mean, it seems as though maybe that's what they're trying to instill on us, maybe in those modern representations for sure. Yeah, because it would seem as though from this fable that if you're not willing to risk, being out in that sort of sea of chaos, fortune will never visit you anyways. If you decide to just stay in your little garden, and you'll end up in a worse place than you started.
No, I would agree. I do like be very afraid. You got to risk something at some point. It's always easier to do it in the beginning than it is to do later on. Once you start tacking on like life responsibilities, it becomes very difficult to take chances.
Did you ever see?
No, it's probably the gamble is just more. Like all of a sudden, it's not like your homestead, but it's like yours and your kid's homestead or something like that. Becomes far riskier to gamble anything.
Right. Ayla, what were you saying? Did you see what?
Yeah, did you ever see Stranger Than Fiction with Will Ferrell?
Mm-hmm.
No,
and I like it.
I
You haven't seen it? Oh, it's a good movie. I think you'd really dig it. It's this guy, he lives a pretty safe life. And then one day when he's brushing his teeth, he starts to hear like narration for everything that he's doing, and he can't figure out like where the voice is coming from, if he's crazy. But she starts to narrate like plot points, and he finds out the direction of things, and he's like, I don't want things to go that route. So he's like, what if I just sit in my living room and like I don't go anywhere, right? Like nothing can happen.
Mhm.
His little desperate attempt to be safe. And sure enough, like there's a construction crew and they throw a wrecking ball into the wrong apartment because
Yeah.
of course they did.
That's refusal of the call, right? In our hero's
Mhm.
journey, you know,
Yeah.
the hero always refuses the call the first time, and then
It's true.
he's thrust out into the world anyways because he doesn't have a choice. Yeah.
Thrust. Mhm.
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 But yeah, so I wanted to share those two little fables with you. And Aesop actually wrote many about fortune and luck, because again, what's interesting, and I forgot to point out when we were talking about Tyche and Fortuna, she became bigger than the Olympians. She was more
Wow.
quintessential because she was so powerful in the fates of not just individuals but communities. So
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Uh,
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So let's talk about, and this is what I was trying to hold back because you guys were touching on it so well, and I hope that we can rekindle some of those thoughts, because we're going to talk about the other side of the coin now. So because Tyche was such a fickle character in the mythology, she was later sort of ascribed a sister, and the sister would be the other side of the coin for Tyche. So if Tyche is fortune, her sister would be misfortune, and her sister was aptly then named Nemesis.
Ooh.
And both Nemesis and Tyche were daughters of, they say Zeus and Hera, but there's other mythology that traces them back to the primordial chaos of Nyx, which I like a little bit better because they would come out of chaos instead of just like Zeus and messing around and being Zeus. But what's great is because there was this sort of dualistic nature of Tyche, they decided that she needed a counterpart, and her counterpart thus became Nemesis, which roughly translates to divine retribution. So we were talking about this concept of luck, and if it's fickle, and why do good things happen to bad people, and why do things like this happen, and so in order to answer those questions, in order to have somebody to address those questions, they created the goddess Nemesis. Nemesis was divine retribution. She was justice, and she would come to those who took too much from Tyche, and you weren't allowed to really invoke one without the other. And so that's where I think it's really kind of cool. This duality comes into more of a narrative of these two sisters who are counterparts to each other, but cannot be called without one another together. That Nemesis is always there to make sure that the balance that Tyche bestows is equitable. And so there's kind of an interesting, I think, critique there about sort of the inequity of luck, or the inequality of luck, and people's desire to really like have a counterbalance to that. And that's where Nemesis comes in.
That's so interesting. So wait, so Tyche Fortuna can give you good luck,
Yes.
or take away your good luck.
Yeah.
Not necessarily give you
fortune
bad
and
luck,
misfortune is probably better to say. Yeah.
Okay. But Nemesis is like, if you have too much of either, it's going to come in and
Too much of it. Well, it's particularly too much of fortune, too much fortune.
Interesting.
And so it gets into that, like, okay, so then you get into like this socio-political idea too, right? So Nemesis would be the balancer of the scales. You have a certain level of the populace that becomes way overly advantaged because of, birth or whatever, luck, fortune. Then Nemesis would be invoked in order to balance the scales again.
Yeah, but it's almost too like you have to like you would have to take advantage of luck, right? Like you not only do you have a certain birthright, but you took advantage of that birthright by like, I don't know, cheating and bribing and stealing your way to more fortune.
Right.
So now you've taken advantage of Taiki and thus invoked Nemesis into your life, which makes sense as like as trying to safeguard people from taking too much of advantage of a civilization, because that can break it down completely, right? Like, why probably why communism falls apart is because it gets top heavy.
Yeah,
like, you have all the riches to one person pretty much, no matter what you do. So yeah, I can see why that could be really good to ascribe to a mythology and to place that into a work within a civilization.
Certainly. And a little bit about Nemesis in the ancient Greek religion. Nemesis is the goddess who enacts retribution against those who succumb to hubris and arrogance before the gods. She's portrayed as a winged goddess wielding a whip or a dagger. And the poet Mesomedides wrote a hymn to Nemesis in the early 2nd century AD, where he addressed her, Nemesis, winged balancer of life, dark-faced god, daughter of justice. And he mentions her as as her adamantine bridles that restrain the frivolous insolences of mortals. And in early times, representations of Nemesis actually represent or resemble Aphrodite, who sometimes bears the epithet Nemesis. And then later, the maiden goddess of proportion and the avenger of crime. She has She has the attributes: a measuring rod, a bridle, scales, a sword, and a scourge. And she rides in a chariot drawn by griffins.
Oh, she's dope.
Yeah,
Nemesis
she's
is
badass.
sort of my favorite now. Also, is she like cousin to Wolverine because she has adamantium bridles?
Yeah, I guess that's a way of saying like godly metal armor.
Yeah, well, adamantine means unbreakable. So
Yeah.
yeah, it makes total sense. So she's cousins with a freaking Wolverine. It's dope.
Well, not cousins, but she just has adamantine armor on.
Well,
But yeah,
I can
she's
definitely see
awesome.
somebody would write a hymn to her.
Right.
Yeah, I'd write a hymn to her.
Yeah, she's riding a chariot of Griffiths with a sword and scales and there's
Wait,
rock
what are
music
scales?
playing.
Oh, like the
scales
way
of
scales.
justice. Yeah.
Damn. Okay, so we need to get
When
rid
you,
of our justice icon and replace it with her. Just
No,
total badass.
no. She's fine. You leave Our Lady Justice alone.
Well, actually, in some representations of the Lady Justice, she is holding a sword as well.
Oh,
she's
shit.
holding a sword and scales. Yeah,
and she's blind.
And she is blind. Yeah, so you get this like weird wrap up of Nemesis and Fortuna within the Lady Justice. Yeah.
Not to mention the element of luck that can play into justice.
Yes,
that is true. Something or not.
That is very true. Very
One
true.
point of view, right?
Yeah.
But no, I really like that imagery of Nemesis as being much more of this, like this this female paladin, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, kind of like the Valkyrie almost, like a justice bringer. So the word Nemesis originally meant the distributor of fortune, neither good nor bad, simply in due proportion to each according to what was deserved. Later, Nemesis came to suggest the resentment caused by any disturbance of this right proportion and the senses of justice that could not allow it to pass unpunished. Nemesis is considered in some mythology to be the mother of the face that launched 1,000 ships, the Helen of Troy, which is kind of interesting as well. And yeah, so that's my little rundown of Nemesis. She was the mother of Helena of Troy as well, which is kind of interesting because that whole thing is full of retribution and justice and all of that too. So
and it makes you wonder if it has Helen of Troy was originally Helen of Sparta. Makes sense as far as this warrior goddess goes.
Yeah, big time.
And the women of Sparta were known to be like most beautiful woman in all of Greece.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's what makes it why you get that combination of Aphrodite in there as well. Which I think why it would make sense to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of like, it's kind of like I don't know. There's a level of energy with that justice and then love as well. There's something kind of close to that. But in that line that we just read, meaning the distributor of fortune, neither good nor bad, but simply in due proportion to according to what was deserved. And so that's where you get this concept of like too much luck brings nemesis, because you might not be deserving of all of that fortune.
Or misfortune.
Exactly. Yeah. She can balance the scales in the other direction too.
But according to what you deserve.
Yes, according to what you deserve. Yeah.
That's interesting. And she's riding a chariot with griffins.
Mm-hmm.
That's the eagle-headed
lion-bodied, eagle-winged thing. Yeah.
She's just like awesome times 30,000. That's ridiculous. I love it.
Pretty rad.
But
it would make sense that you have such powerful imagery for something that is so necessary, right? Especially for a society to function. You need that sort of
it's like a check.
Yeah, the check, the balance, right? Exactly.
And retribution too is such a strong human, like not like a strong human will thing, but like it's something that needs equally powerful imagery to go along with it. Because retribution is it's one of those emotions, man. It's one of those heavy ones.
Yeah. It's visceral. It's deep in the soul. For sure.
Maybe it's a possession of nemesis. Oh.
Maybe.
Super intense.
Anytime she went out.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of where I'm at with all of this. I think I can end it up here. I do like the sort of the balance between fortune and hubris that we seem to have to kind of walk, where it's like it's that humility, right? It's the humility before the gods. Don't be hubristic, because then nemesis visits you. But if you have this sort of humility before the gods about your boon, then perhaps you can be bestowed again in the future.
I hate the
without
word
the
boon.
need of divine divine repercussions or whatever. Retribution.
Representation.
Yeah.
Which is funny too, because you might not even have that hubris. You might be sitting there collecting lottery checks, falling into acting roles and winning facials and spa treatments all the time, knowing like you don't deserve it, and you're just sitting there like, oh my god, I'm being so humble, but nemesis, she's gonna get me.
Yeah.
Like that would be really funny
to balance those scales yourself.
Right.
I know, right? On a trip. Whoa.
Well, and since you mentioned that concept real quick, I can tack on this, which was the last part of this episode, which was the concept of jinx. So I would say that a jinx is sort of like a vehicle of nemesis, and like that's her way of tipping the scale back, right? You have that feeling when you're on a roll with something and somebody's like, hey, you're doing really well, and you're like, shut up, don't jinx it. Because
dude,
you don't want nemesis to hear that you are getting praise for something that was outside of your control.
I hear that. It's really funny, because as somebody who's like rejecting the notion of luck these days, I still wouldn't want to jinx anything or call attention to anything. It's just just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Don't look at it.
And that's the humility, right? That's the stopgap to the hubris, is the fear of the jinx, which is fear of nemesis.
Right.
That's just a way to get a Coke.
Yeah, to each its own, I guess.
I wanted cola so bad. I had a chicken tenders the other day, and I had a nice tall
Cola.
glass of soda. Oh my god, it was like ice cold Coca-Cola.
All right.
They
Well,
should-
now
Oh.
you brought more attention to it.
You shouldn't call it an ice cold glass of pop.
Right.
A cola.
A cola.
Cola. I've been
Yeah.
calling it cola lately. I think because I want to watch Napoleon Dynamite, but I don't actually want to watch Napoleon Dynamite. There's
Mm.
just certain phrases that for some reason have been like in my head lately, like tots.
Mm.
The big sigh. Yep.
Mm.
Vote for Pedro. It was a good, cute movie. I might have to watch that again. But I don't want to jinx my good run of movie selections because
Hey,
I
there you
have
go.
found some fantastic movies lately. Not let down. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I think the avoidance of the jinx, right, or the trying not to jinx, it's like you're walking that tightrope. Like we've said, the tightrope across the sea of entropy, right? You're back on that tightrope.
Dang,
And
that was like a year ago, Nick. Good
a
memory.
long time ago. I was in the superstition episode. So you're walking that tightrope across the sea of entropy, and you have to remain humble because your hubris will cause you to fall off. And so this jinx is a reminder that, you know, any misstep will bring nemesis.
And it's important to know that everybody's tightrope is different.
Mhm.
Like, because I've definitely been around people that I've felt like were taking advantage of their luck,
Mm.
but their tightrope just might be different than mine.
Right.
Where if I did the same things they did, Nemesis was going to do a flyby and just knock me off.
Right, exactly.
But they can do it. It's just, and there's part of humility is being okay with that, understanding that, like, yeah, I have to walk this tightrope. That person has to walk that tightrope. It's fine.
Yeah. Their tightrope might be actually a beam. It might be an I-beam, right? So they have a little bit more square, surface for them to walk on. Yeah.
Yep. I'm surprised. Oh no, go for it, because I was going to change topics completely.
Oh, well, this is like a silly nothing comment, but like, do you think that humanity is in the predicament that it's in because we've been broadcasting all of our successes and we've just like as a group jinxed ourselves?
Maybe. Yeah, that's all the social media. Everybody's living their best life, and like Nemesis is sitting in heaven sharpening her sword,
swiping right, like these dirty bastards. What the hell? They got it too good. Not realizing that we only broadcast like the good parts.
Right.
You have to raise an army for all the people broadcast.
Right.
Just like need more griffins. Well, what was the topic you were going to change it to?
Well, when you said the other side of the coin, I just thought we were gonna dive, maybe not on the retribution, but just unluckiness or misfortune as a whole. And maybe that's like the other side of the rabbit hole to explore. Because I was gonna bring up the Killing Joke, how have this character, which is the Batman comic, but like the Joker's origin story. And how pretty much his whole life, like the way that he became the Joker, it came down to just one bad day.
Mm-hmm.
Like his pregnant wife died. He got thrown into a vat of acid because he couldn't earn enough money from the comedy show to like pay off a bunch of mobsters. So he had to become hood and do all this stuff. But it just comes down to this notion that all it takes is one bad day to make somebody go insane.
Yeah.
And that misfortune or that unluckiness sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's harkens back to Rota Fortunae. You can imagine that somebody's in the middle of the wheel, right? Like standing, if you're on a water wheel, and Tiki is standing on top trying to push the wheel one way or another. Well, she just decides to dunk you underwater and hold you there. And she's not considerate of how that puts you into a terrible position. You know what I mean? Like, and that's one of the things too. It's interesting. Is like there's a portion of her who is self-conscious about how she is interpreted, but also a portion of her who is haphazard. And so she's definitely a dualistic sort of deity. And so, yeah, it could be the haphazardness of the goddess of fortune as to why you would have a string of misfortune. I don't know if there was an antithesis as far as like a god of misfortune per se, at least not in what I read. It seems that Tiki kind of embodies both of those things. And then you have this, like the, nemesis being the balancer of the cosmic equation or whatever.
Yeah, I find that interesting. Yeah, even like on the other side too, I guess going back to comics is you also have Domino, Marvel comic.
Right.
So like her superpower is luck.
She's lucky. Yeah. Which is kind of a cool superpower once you like demonstrate what it looks like. You know what I mean? Like when you say, "Oh, I'm just lucky," or like that's not a superpower, then you actually see, what happens, and it's just like, all right, that's pretty sweet.
Throw a thing in a random direction and somebody dies. How great is that?
Exactly.
All the situation just plays out in your favor. No, yeah, I kind of find this nature of Tiki too to almost be like she's like a weird, like how Luna's weird in the Harry Potter universe. She's sort of strange but interesting.
Yeah,
I feel like Tiki is the
She's
same way.
lecherous one in the bathroom.
No, she's the weirdo that like sees the dead animals, like the dead spirits and stuff.
Yeah, they're all like spacey and out there.
Yeah.
I have to watch it again. I don't know how many times I've watched that damn series. I retain nothing about it. Like I still don't know how it ends.
I became a fan of Harry Potter ironically, and then became an actual fan of Harry Potter.
It's like the other guys. You learned ballet ironically.
Yeah, why not?
Did it so I could make fun of my high school sweetheart, and then I did, and then I liked the series.
There's speaking of like random stuff, there's an episode of The Office where Dwight really wants a pewter wizard. He's like wanting to buy it. And there's like the whole episode's built upon it. And I remember thinking at the time, like, that's so random. Like, why would anybody want a pewter wizard? And as we're talking, I've been looking up like little sculptures of Nemesis because I'm like, I kind of want a sculpture. I want a little pewter deity icon. It's a great like archetype. Love it.
Yeah.
And I think too, like Nemesis is comforting for somebody that's like, if you're seeing somebody take advantage of their luck or having too much, you're like, oh, that Nemesis is going to come and get you.
Right. Yeah. That's the concept of karma as well. But yeah, I mean, like, and it's really an important other side of the equation or the coin as far as fortune is concerned, because, like you want to make sure that those scales are balanced as much as possible.
Yeah, if possible.
But yeah, that's all I got for today, guys. You guys have anything else before we wrap up?
No, I liked it. That was cool.
Yeah, well done. That was a fun walk through luck. Somewhat cathartic, You think about all the humans. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm clapping over here too. Sweet. Yep. But no, I just think about it like, humans throughout time, right? Like they've wrestled with these ideas of good luck, bad luck, how to make sense of it, creating gods because of it, altering the gods, creating sister gods. And then, words that we have that come out of these human struggles that we all have to deal with and wrestle with and live in spite of. So it's good stuff. Luck. Who would have thought?
And that was just one drop in the bucket of the topic too. So
make a playlist. We're gonna have a playlist. Endless episodes on luck and superstition.
Pretty much all the topics we talk about could be multiple episodes. So
oh my god, I know. And then it's like, is the playlist part and parcel with free will and determinism, or is that a different playlist? I don't know. Is it all the same?
As if get rid of. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't want to talk about that right now.
Well, cool. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you, Mike and Ayla, for talking with me tonight. And thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate you. If you enjoyed this conversation, please consider giving us a thumbs up on our YouTube page, and a subscription would be great. We're trying to build that YouTube audience. We're also on, yes.
I was just going to say in the comments, if you happen to find a Nemesis statue that is amazing, just drop a link.
There you go. Yes, that too. But we are also on audio on Verbal, and we also have a an Odyssey page and a Rumble page. I will be adding more videos to those as well. And we really appreciate you guys for taking the time with us this evening to listen. Please go check out the network of podcasts we have with our buddies. Our buddy Keelan has a podcast tomorrow night at 8 p.m. It's called If Numbers Could Talk. If you're into stats and figures and the numbers and how they shake out on a myriad of different things, whether it's sports, entertainment, cars, he's looking into it, and he's going to give you the stats and figures about all that type of stuff. So go check him out Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. If Numbers Could Talk on Facebook and on YouTube. Our buddy Dijon has a Twitch channel. It's called Strawberries and Coffee. And he streams Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 10 p.m. ish. He also has a YouTube page. You can check him out at Strawberries and Coffee. And Mike just joined us for Screen Time Continuum, which is on Wednesdays and Sundays with Keelan and Dijon once in a while. And that is on at 8:30 p.m. So please go check us out there as well. But thanks, you guys. Have a great night. And until next time, Cognonauts, stay out there, and we'll catch you on the next Exofathom. Good night.
Peace.
Later.